We are so excited to bring our first tag kiosk to the people here in Paulding County. So our first tag kiosk is located here at the Kroger off of 278 and 61 in Dallas. So one of the main benefits of us having the tag kiosk here at the Kroger is you can renew your tag anytime that this Kroger is open. Here at our tag kiosk, it prints your decal out instantly. Anyone can use our kiosk here at Kroger as long as your county participates in the tag kiosk program. Any Paulding County resident can use a tag kiosk anywhere here in Georgia, and there is a URL code that you can scan and find out which kiosk is the closest to you. If there's ever any questions about the tag kiosk, you can contact us here at the Paulding County Tax Commissioner's Office. Our telephone number is 770-443-7584.
Welcome to Veterans Memorial Park, located on the Watson Government Complex here in Paulding County, Georgia.
Our serene amphitheater and peaceful walking trail provide a tranquil space for reflection and gratitude. Within the park, you will find monuments paying tribute to the heroes of Paulding County who sacrificed their lives in service, as well as those who perished in the 9/11 attacks. Children can enjoy laughter and play on our well-equipped playground, while visitors can stroll along the scenic half-mile trail surrounded by the beauty of nature. For more information or to plan your visit, please call the Parks Administration Office at 770-445-8065. Veterans Park, a place of honor, remembrance, and gratitude for our nation's heroes.
Welcome to Mulberry Rock Park, located on the south side of Paulding County, Georgia. This park offers scenic walking trails, a great playground for children to enjoy, multi-purpose fields, and plenty of outdoor recreational activities.
With amenities like our enclosed pavilion, multi-purpose fields, and 3 miles of scenic pedestrian trails, Mulberry Rock Park provides the perfect backdrop for your outdoor adventures. Explore our community garden, let the kids unleash their imagination at the playground, or gather with friends and family at one of our 5 group pavilions for a memorable day in nature. Embrace the tranquility of Mulberry Rock Park as you stroll along the pedestrian trails or enjoy a picnic at one of our single-table shelters. For more information or to plan your visit, please call the Parks Administration Office at 770-445-8065. Mulberry Rock Park, where every moment is an opportunity to connect with nature and create cherished memories.
Good afternoon, everyone. If I could please get your attention, if you would take any mobile device that you have that might make a noise and turn it off or to silence so it doesn't interrupt the proceedings of the meeting. Welcome to the October Paulding County Planning Commission meeting. Just to go over a few things, Paulding County Planning Commission is a recommending body. We'll hear each application brought before it. Anyone wishing to anyone here to present, the applicant has 15 minutes to present. They can utilize all of that time or leave some for others to use to speak on behalf of their application, or they can reserve some of the time for rebuttal if need be. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to an application, there's 15 minutes allotted in total for opposition to speak. And if you do have people who line up behind you, please be mindful of their time as well. We are a recommending body for both Paulding County Board of Commissioners. We do have one application that's here for the City of Hiram, so that will be forwarded to the City of Hiram for their next regularly scheduled meeting that would be in compliance with advertising requirements in that jurisdiction. I'm going to dispense with the reading of participation in a public meeting, but if you would like to pick up one of the brochures, they're on the back table at the back of the room. Feel free to do so. So at this time, I will ask Planning Commission, if you've had a chance to read and review the minutes from the previous session of this body. If there's any edits or concerns. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the previous session.
Make a motion.
Motion to approve from Mr. Leggett. Have a second from Ms. Fitzgerald. All in favor? Motion passes 6-0 and 1. I'll go ahead and sign. I would also tell you that regarding the times allotted for those speaking on behalf of an application or speaking against, questions that may come to you from the Planning Commission will not count against your time if that should take place. Mr. Robinson, is there anything I needed to go over?
No, sir. I just have a couple announcements.
If you would.
There's two applications that are actually going to be heard at the November 19th Planning Commission meeting. We were originally we're trying to get them on this agenda. One application is 2403 Site Plan Stipulation Amendment. This was an application by Michelle McCauley requesting to amend the site plan for a master plan residential district and a PRD located off of Seven Hills Boulevard. That one will be in November 19th, and then Chris Zakarowicz. That's a special use permit for a couple family businesses, and that one is also on November 19th. That's 2412 SUP.
All right. Mr. Robinson, if you go ahead and introduce the first application.
First application is 2429Z, application by Arctic Acquisitions LLC, requesting to rezone 305.140 acres, I believe there. Parcel, it's from R2 Suburban Residential District to MPR Master Plan Residential District. It's for the development of 399 residential units, including 61 attached residential units. Property is located in land lots 1143 through 1144, 1160 through 1164, and 1214 through 1217. It's District 3, Section 3. It's on the east and west side of Cartersville Highway, also known as State Route 61, and it's south of High Shoals Road. It is also on the north and south side of Snope Jones Road. Staff has recommended approval with 10 stipulations, and the applicant is present.
The applicant will please come around, sign in, state your name, and address your comments to the chair.
Good afternoon. My name is Joel Larkin. I'm an attorney with the law firm Sams, Larkin & Huff, and I'm pleased to represent the applicant today. And before I get started, just a housekeeping matter. Chris, I've got 9 stipulations in the packet I got. Did you add something?
The stipulation number one, that I have in mind was landscaping plan, but that's required anyway. We
Okay.
can disregard that one.
Prepare landscape plan?
So yours are correct.
All right, thank you. As I said, I'm pleased to be here on behalf of the applicant today. This is a rather large rezoning application by acreage. As Chris said, it's 305 acres. It's currently zoned R2, which under your ordinance contemplates development of 20,000 square foot residential lots with house sizes minimum of 1,100 square feet, typically 100 foot by 200 foot wide lots. So generally, with an acre being 43,000 plus square feet, you're looking at development somewhere in the neighborhood of up to 2 units per acre. When the UDO was adopted, the board sought ways to allow flexibility and creativity in the development of property so you could take advantage of unique topographic and other features. And one of those techniques that they had was the creation of the MPR, or Master Plan Residential Classification. That classification won't come before you very often because it does require a minimum of 300 acres. So I think there's one other, to my knowledge, that's been approved, and that was actually on your agenda and is coming back to you next month. So you have 305 currently R2 zoned acres, could be developed as is, like I said, with up to 2 units per acre. This property has some nice topographic features, some streams and creeks and some topography. And the applicant has put together a site plan and has gone through a number of iterations. I think they've been working on it for about a year, meeting with staff, meeting with the DOT. And it resulted in the plan that you have before you, which has a total of 399 units. 61 of those are attached, and the balance are conventional detached. That's a net density of 1.3 units per acre. So 399 sounds like a lot of houses, but we're talking, approximately 3/4 of an acre devoted per each lot. Instead of those large lots where you carve up the property and mass grade it, this MPR classification allows you to reduce the conventional lots to as small as 12,000 square feet and put the balance of that property into green space that can be shared by all the residents. So it's not a density play. It doesn't allow you to make smaller lots and increase your density. Here, the MPR, like the R2, allows up to 2 units per acre, and the site plan that we have today is substantially under that at 1.3 units per acre. We've submitted along with a site plan that shows housing on both sides of Cartersville Highway. All right, Chris, can you work this? Put up site plan for me. I'm sorry, I'm technologically challenged here. Great, thank you. All right, you see the site plan there. It's got the yellow lots are the detached product, and you see we've got housing on both sides of Cartersville Highway. In the middle there in purple is a approximately 4.3 acre tract that we've designated for construction of the primary amenity package. There's a clubhouse, and I think we've got a rendering in your packet. There's a pool, and there'll be other amenities in that area and throughout the project. There'll be some sports fields. There's the red you see on there are walking trails through the common areas. We're going to have some benches and picnic areas. But it's designed so that it's a park-like setting for the residents in the neighborhood. You also have in your packet some photographs of the renderings. And what we're proposing is a light density new town-type development that'll be a real asset to Paulding County. As Chris said, the staff has recommended approval with some proposed stipulations, and we got those Friday, at 2, and we've looked at them, and I was thankfully had an opportunity to meet with the DOT a short while ago, and if I may, I'm going to discuss those stipulations with you. Number 1, access to be determined during plan review. That's a typical stipulation that you're used to seeing. Access in this case is going to be off Snow Jones Road, which is existing, but we'll be reworking that. And then there's a road across the street that a different developer has put in to serve a project behind there. The site plan shows where we envision access. Obviously, it'll go through the plan review process. So we're agreeable to that stipulation. Stipulation 2 requires us to provide a traffic impact study. We have provided that several months ago. The DOT has commented on it, and we've submitted revisions, and hopefully we'll be meeting with them again next week so we can work through any traffic issues on the front end. Condition 3 requires us to incorporate traffic calming devices internal to the subdivision. And essentially, that's designing the project in a way that you don't encourage the streets to become raceways. And we're in agreement with staff on that, and we will abide by that stipulation. Stipulation number 4 contemplates a development agreement between the developer and the county for the modifications or redevelopment of Snow Jones Road through the community, and we're agreeable to that, and that's part of the discussion that we're having with them. Condition number 5 is a request that the developer agree to a $1,600 per lot contribution to the county. We've let the DOT know that we're certainly interested in working on traffic issues and talking to them, but we've got a traffic study that we're talking about, and we're going to work through with them what improvements need to be made as a result of this project. And so we're not agreeable to that, writing that check at this point. We'd prefer to let the traffic study speak for itself and work through that in plan review. Number 6 they want our agreement to coordinate with adjacent property owners regarding future access, and that's something that we've been in discussions with, and that's a normal part of the process. I'm just concerned about that being a zoning stipulation. Currently, the property is surrounded by PRD properties on 3 sides, most of which are already in plan review, and at this point, the combination of their existing plans and the topographic features around there make it unlikely that there would be interparcel access. So we're certainly open to talking where it makes sense, but we don't want a zoning condition that may require us to come back at a later point and go through this whole process. Number 7 was they wanted an agreement that the attached single family, or the streets in the attached area, which is just on the right side of Cartersville Highway where the attached products are, that they remain private, and we don't have any expectation or desire that they be private. So we don't agree with that. We'd like that to be public roads. We're going to build them to public road standards. I know a lot of times the developers want to create private streets, but we want this to be an open community, and we want that to be an active part of it and not separated off. Okay, number 8 was a concern about pedestrian access across Cartersville Highway from one side of the project to the other, and we didn't initially understand what was meant. It sounded like it said we needed to build an elevated walkway or a tunnel, but the concern, as I understand it, is that the mail kiosk is being shown on one side of the road. So what we're going to propose instead is that we build a mail kiosk on both sides of the road so people aren't having to play Frogger across the road to go get their mail. And finally, there's a stipulation, and this is a generic kind of stipulation, that we leave enough room in the driveway on the attached product so that we're not blocking the sidewalk. And I've met with the DOT on that. The development regs for MPR require that we set back 20 feet from the right-of-way, which leaves more than enough room. So this stipulation, it's imprecise, and the the zoning we've submitted meets it, so we would ask that that be deleted. So we're agreeable to stipulations 1 through 4 and a revision to number 5 that requires us to put a mail kiosk on both sides of the road to serve the separate sides of the development. I have here with me today.
Number 8 is the one that you mentioned was the one regarding the mail kiosks.
I'm sorry.
Number 8.
You're correct. I've got a red line that's renumbered. Yeah, number 8 is the one, so.
Okay.
All right, and I have here with me today the developer, I have our engineer, and I have our traffic engineer. They're all available to respond to any questions that you may have.
That's fine. You do have 4 minutes remaining. You're going to choose to rest now? Or
Yes.
do you want anyone else to speak?
Anybody? I think we'll rest and respond to questions that you have.
Well, generally, I begin with questions to the point of, do you agree with the listed stipulations? You've established that you are not fully in agreement with it, so I think it's going to beg a little bit of conversation along with staff. Or the Planning Commission could go ahead and approve with however they wish to list the stipulations for the proposal. I would agree that anything that you can do, and again, I'm going to preface this with just some clarity, I do live off of High Shoals Road. I am extremely familiar with trying to navigate traffic coming off of that roadway, either going to Cartersville or going to the city of Dallas. And it is not something that is for the faint of heart. So if you're going to have people walking across the road, I would fully advise you figure out a way to stop that. Not a good.
And on that, our walking trails, we designed so that they don't meet up on opposite sides of the road and encourage any kind of pedestrian access across the road.
And I did determine, by the way, that I'm outside the distance for having to recuse myself from discussion on this application, just for full disclosure. With regard to the $1,600 per lot, you said that you were not in agreement with that. Would you care to, again, restate the purpose?
Yes, that is a request that we make a what we consider an arbitrary contribution that's not for any specific purpose. As we go through plan review, we've done a very detailed traffic study, and we're discussing specific impacts that this project may or may not have on the immediate area and on various intersections, and there's a dialogue about what we can do specifically to address those concerns. And until we got a sense of what we're going to be doing and how much we're going to be contributing in that regard, this is just going into the general fund.
Well, in that case, then I would go, first, let me, Jason, if I could impose on you, any legalities as it pertains to a request for fees per property?
If the fees are going towards specifically designated project improvements for this particular project, to serve this project and this project alone, then there may be some leeway to permit it. To the extent that $1,600 is going to be committed or collected for system improvements, Paulding County does not have impact fees, so it wouldn't be permitted to be expended on any sort of system improvements.
Okay. So then I would go to our director of DOT. The $1,600 that was here, listed here, is that for a specific project?
Looking at project improvements along 61 in this corridor in this area, as you know, Jody, there's quite a bit of traffic through there with the DRIs that have been permitted for Sheffield's. Looking in the estimated, I think, traffic range of 20,000 cars per day going for those additions. We're having right now a major corridor study, and it looks like by the time you get to 2050, you have a very poor level of operation service. There's obviously no state Highway 61 widening projects also in that time frame. So essentially looking at county projects to get folks over from Highway 61 towards the east side of the county.
So would it be better to characterize, and again, I'm not stating that the Planning Commission has to recommend the stipulation or amend it or otherwise, but it would be better to, would it be better to characterize that $1,600 as to be applied toward service improvements along 61 or Snope Jones, or? collectively?
Just to be clear, project improvements are permissible.
Okay.
Those type of improvements have to serve the project. They cannot serve the general system overall up and down 61 as a whole. If we had impact fees, it would be a different situation. But project improvements are, if the fees are going to go toward things within this project, then there's an argument that it's not a problem. But to the extent those fees are going to be used outside of this project to support other developments in there, that would not be permissible.
So if we were to require a 4-lane road along 61 in this section, it could be used for that to alleviate some of the traffic problems in front of this development, right?
Assuming that 61 was a county road, which it's not, perhaps. It depends how much of whether the judge is going to find we fit the definition of a system improvement or a project improvement. I wish I had a clearer answer on that, but I do not.
But that's what I was kind of looking for, was some kind of type of clarity on what it could be applied to, if anything at all. I don't want to
Mr. Paul.
belabor the point. Just a moment. I didn't want to belabor the point if there's no way to actually classify what these funds would be used for.
I would be concerned if there's not a designated project within the development right now that the funds are going toward.
And I'm certainly in favor for improvements along 61 because there are deficiencies along the roadway that do need to be addressed, and along this segment of roadway that is expressly dealing with this project. But I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, maybe I wasn't clear. The developer is not at all averse to making project improvements. In fact, one of the stipulations about Snow Jones Road specifically requires us to do a development agreement on one of the project improvements. The traffic study has identified potential other project improvements that, as a result of our discussions, we very likely may well end up agreeing to make. But, if this was, if this was a stipulation that says, the developer will contribute up to $1,600 for project improvements, and that was the end of the discussion, that would be one thing. But the way we read this is, we're going to take $1,600 per lot and put it on this pile, and then we're going to have all the normal discussions and commitments that we expect to make, and this is kind of an extra.
Okay.
A payment, and that we don't think is proper. Well, we're going to probably spend way more than that.
Okay. I will go ahead and move to the next stipulation, number 6. Agrees to coordinate with adjacent property owners regarding vehicular access. Before I go back to you, I wanted to ask Mr. Robinson, development regulations and requirements that fall within the development regulations for interparcel access, is that trumped by the designation of zoning here of NPR?
In this case, the property to the north, which was zoned PRD many years ago and went through a development of regional impact, I believe it actually had a condition of approval to tie into the south or provide connection to the south. And I think that stipulation is that they go back and research that and make sure that could happen in the future.
Our development regs in the past have said that you have to have interparcel access between parcels.
And that's true, and also especially for landlocked properties.
Right. And that could be handled at plan review.
Exactly.
I mean, you could strike number 6 and number 9 if they're both covered under the development regs. Number 5 obviously is still about as clear as mud.
Yeah, I agree.
Number 8's easy enough. Multiple kiosks. I wish the USPS would get rid of the kiosk altogether. I'm tired of building them. The homeowners and customers don't like them anyway. But that's out of our control. But separating them and putting them on both sides of the road only makes sense.
I have a problem with the townhouse part of it for the simple fact that the closest ladder truck that we have is 5 miles away, 5 miles to the new station, number 13 in Old Cartersville, and it's going to be a single-engine station, as is Station 6, which is 4 miles away. We really don't have the fire equipment nearby to support townhouses. And even if they were in the station, if they weren't on other calls, to be able to respond, you've got a long response time going to those, from those stations. So is there a possibility that could be changed to single family?
I got a question for you, Mr. Leggett.
Yes.
How is, and you know better than I do, how would a townhome, if it's 2-story, just like a traditional private single-family dwelling, how is it different from accessing it?
What do you mean accessing?
I mean, as far as needing a ladder truck. I mean, would it be any different than if it were one of the houses next door?
Yes, there is difference because the continuity of they share basically the same roofs, the whole system, and the distance between these townhomes that I'm seeing here is going to be so close. You lose one unless you got equipment nearby. Take Cobb County, for instance. You see an apartment complex go up, they usually lose the whole apartment complex. It'd be kind of the same thing with townhomes in this area, because unless you've got a good response, unless you've got an engine sitting there waiting on it to happen within a mile, you're going to lose a whole development like that, a whole set of them. And possibility with the even that with the single-family homes, for the simple fact of the radiant heat, and it depends on what time of year it is. If you've got windy conditions, you can lose several of them like that in time that you're going to have the availability to get the equipment in there. If they can get the equipment in there, if we can get a ladder truck into these streets as close as these houses are, and or have the ability to get in and not have cars in the street. So there's a lot of variables that you're looking at on something like that.
Well, on the same part of the subdivision proposal, the concept plan showing the attached dwellings, you are not for number 7 stipulation, which would require that the rights-of-way and all would remain private.
Yeah, when we got that, I assumed that the purpose of the stipulation was the typical scenario where developers build private streets, and then later on, they may come back and try to get the county to accept dedication of them. And that used to be an issue sometimes because the standards they would want to build under might be less. But in Paulding County, the UDO requires that private and public streets be built to the same standards. And that's including from a fire marshal standpoint. So there's no benefit to the county from them being private or public. They're going to be exactly the same streets. And we're not planning on gating them. It's a master association. There's no reason to separate them from the rest of the community.
It doesn't necessarily have to be gated for it to be private.
I understand that.
It can be privately owned and open, which would alleviate the concern you have of them not feeling like they're part of the rest of the development.
I understand.
But also would say that section on the east side of 61 may have a difficult time identifying with the section that's on the west side of 61 because of the great divide of the roadway. So I don't understand that concern, other than I get what you're saying about if you build the road to standard, it would be a similar consideration from other roadways.
And I'm not even sure that anybody wants them to be private. I'm not clear on that at this point. Okay. I've got this stipulation, but we don't have any reason to desire them to be private. There's a lot of issues that creates, and it also removes the possibility of opening that cul-de-sac at some point and extending through to another property, which...
Well, can we ask, Mr. Jones, why would we want them private instead of public? If we removed the townhomes off of this plat and just replaced them with houses, they're probably going to build it exactly the same per your specs. What does the townhomes do other than obviously more traffic being used on that section of street than the rest of the neighborhood?
It's denser, like you said, in terms of traffic. Typically, in the county, townhomes have been built with private street, James. That was the rationale for that particular solution.
One issue that we run into in the past with private streets is also servicing it with public water. We couldn't have public water, we couldn't have private water, but we would have to have public water on private streets. We've had issues in the past of gates on public streets. I'm not a fan of private streets. The maintenance put on the association, we can't guarantee that'll always be there and take care of it. I'm personally would rather it be a public street myself.
And I would submit that most likely, if he refers to historical townhomes, I would, without knowing which one you're talking about, hazard a guess they're not built to current public road standards, because that wasn't the business model when the townhomes that were built a long time ago in Paulding County went in.
I've spoken quite a bit, but I will go ahead and ask, is there anyone else on the Planning Commission wanting to ask questions?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Like you stated before, the NPR is a little new to the district, and because of the unique circumstances that it has. But being the fact that this was an R, or is a current R2, has there been any kind of development review to see what the difference between developing it as an R2 compared to the NPR? I know in your verbiage you stated that it is the proposed density is consistent with what is typically developed and developable under the existing R2, and understandable that you say that's a 1.3 units per acre. So I was just curious if there had been any kind of studies or any kind of thoughts put into what it would look like if it was an actual R2 and the number of units that you could potentially create under that R2.
We have not cited that, and if this plan was approaching 2 units per acre, then it's probably something I would have ordered. But, with where we are, we're down at 1.3, which is well above, or well below the number we would expect from R2, where we would then mass grade and distribute some of these unique some of the floodplain and stuff around the back of lots. But no, I don't have a specific comparison.
Yeah, because of course, one of the issues that, the school system has is when we see numbers like 399, you couple that with, the developments that are around it, we typically, and through all of our review processes, we're looking at individual developments at individual times. We're not taking in consideration of whole aspects. Right. And so this creates a little bit of a unique circumstance for us, because if it's already existing as an R2, then you could go in and you could just go through the standard plan review and try to develop it as an R2, and it wouldn't even come before this board.
Right.
But with the NPR, and I get what you're doing, and I could appreciate trying to hold on to the natural landscape and trying to make a little bit better green space for it, for the people that would potentially be, purchasers of the property. It's just, how many would you get compared to how many you're proposing? And that's our bigger issue, because it's no secret that the northern portion of the district is expanding, and it's growing exponentially. Mm-hmm. This particular development is actually not 100% in the north complex. The elementary school would actually be served by Northside Elementary currently, as the district stands. Of course, with all the developments coming in, rezoning potentials and all of that, we don't know. Currently, it's at Northside. I'm currently building a 20 classroom addition at Northside to help accommodate some of the development that's already going on in the area. The middle school is Moses Middle School. And currently, right now, we've already done an addition back in 2021 for that school, and we're back up to 88% capacity currently at Moses. This one would go to 94% capacity if it was approved. But again, it's a little bit of a unique circumstance because it's already an R2 for this one. But the bigger one is going to be, of course, North Paulding High School. Currently, we're at 145% capacity at North Paulding High School. Granted, we are in the process of building a 40 classroom addition to help us, to soften that blow. But one of the things beyond all of that I just kind of would like to caution, or at least educate you on a little bit, and I'm not saying that we're going to go through the entire aspect of it, but when you answer, or when the question is whether the zoning proposal will result in a use that will or could cause an excessive burdensome to the existing streets, transportations, facilities, or schools, you say no. And in this one, I do agree with you because it's already an R2. We're not trying to zone it from something different. But I would just caution, when you say the lead time for ultimate issuance of certificates of occupancy allows the school system to basically have more than sufficient time to plan for those, that's not necessarily the way the school system gets funding. We're not like the Field of Dreams. We don't build it so they come. We have to build because they're already here, and because we are doing the best we can with the planning. So when you take a development like this and then you couple it with all of the other developments that you've got, they just kind of start to overlap. And so as we catch up on one, then we got another one right behind it, and our funding is just not, it just doesn't work that way. So I just kind of want to make a comment.
I understand, and we submitted, I think, a timeline for the project as part of it. I don't know if you had a chance to look at that, but we're talking about building this out in pods over 5-6 year period at least. So we're not going to get 400 residences just show up on the market tomorrow.
And it's understandable, but again, I know we're specifically talking about your development right now, but you got a development directly to the east of it. You got another development that's under, consideration, adjacent to it. We've already talked about the PRD that's already there. So again, when you couple that, you may have a 5 to 6 year build out. Well, they may have a 4 to 5 year build out. Another one may have a 7 to 8 year build out. By the time you overlap that, we're still dealing with the overcapacitation of the schools, and that's something that we've always got to deal with. But again, in this particular circumstance, that's why I was just curious if we had looked at anything, because of course, with this being a NPR, you're going to want sewer, to serve everything here. But if it was an R2, it wouldn't be sewered, it would be septic. But then you would come back for a rezoning if you wanted to put sewer for an R3. So again, if we went to a septic and had it as the original R2, I would be curious to see if there was a reduction in the overall number of units, because again, one unit can make the difference, or one student can make the difference in what happens inside of a school system, adding, quote unquote, that burden.
Right. Can I chime in for 1 second? Mr. Wicks, I understand what you're looking for, and I appreciate it. I think the answer you're looking for is those numbers. And on traditional septic neighborhoods, we average about 1.1 units to the acre. In this case, any developer that has sewer available to them is going to look at that cost of that sewer to increase that density. So if they just went to septic, which they probably wouldn't do, and you went to 1.1, you're still over 300 units. But if they went to sewer, we've done sewer neighborhoods R2 where we've hit 1.5. I don't think they could hit 2.
And we do have sewer on site now.
Right. So I think you could technically have an increase in that number. You'd have to take out the floodplain, and the open space then becomes a usable spot. We don't get open space left over. So I think you end up with the same either way or close to it.
And I appreciate the input, because that's what I'm asking.
Right.
Because again, we don't have the NPRs. This isn't something that is commonplace. So, going from an R2 to an R1, or from a PRD to a R2 or X, Y, and Z, that's exactly what we're looking for, is trying to accommodate and be able to prepare for, and plan appropriately for the things that are coming. Because again, I don't want to go into the unfortunate fortunates, but you've got a lot of R2s that are already existing, throughout the community and throughout the district. And we understand as a school system, if it's already existing, and you got the money and you got the ability, you go through the process and the plan review process, those kids are coming. So that's exactly what we're looking for, is what are the numbers?
And to ease your mind from a planning standpoint, you're not going to get a lot of NPRs because there's 5 pages of requirements, including 300 acres. And there's not that many 300-acre tracts that are going to get developed like this.
Yeah.
I know the developers here, but has the builders been identified? Because if you went to R2, you may have a whole different builder, because you may build a smaller house. The R2 doesn't hold you to a higher standard of square footage like NPR does.
Yeah, the R2 would allow 1,100 square foot houses. Right. We're substantially larger than that.
But to that same question, do we know who's building? We see
we're talking with builders, but I don't think we have identified a specific builder. Is that?
We have a handful of the lead candidates that we're in conversations with.
So the sketches or the houses that we see in here are not necessarily
if you would,
that's who
to the lectern.
Yeah, that's who I found. Okay.
Sign in.
Todd, you want to come up?
If you're giving input, I need your name on the ledger, please.
Specific to the bill, sorry, Todd Terwilliger, Arden Acquisitions.
And what was your name, sir?
Todd Terwilliger with Arden Acquisitions, applicant. The builder, the main conversations with Dan Ryan Builders.
Okay.
Dan Ryan, they're all over the East Coast. They're not publicly traded, but they're well-funded. Their division president was former Ashton Woods, but he provided me with all the plans, and he's the main conversation right now.
Yeah, I just Googled the plans and found the plans online and saw that company, so
Yeah.
that was my question.
Yeah. Am I allowed to clarify a question about this building separation? Just because the NPR has a minimum 20 feet between the townhome buildings, where the side setbacks of the single-family detached and NPR is 8 feet. So the townhome buildings are actually further apart than the detached, with a maximum size of 6 units. So it's equivalent to maybe 2, maybe 3 house widths compared to what you would build on the detached lots. So I just wanted to put some clarification on building separation as it relates to other fire code. In most places where we built townhouses, you're using some fire retardant material on the walls, the demising walls between the units, which helps slow down the burn.
Are you amenable to not doing the townhomes and do single-family detached
I
housing?
mean, I would say no. It creates product differentiation and price separation. It's a more attainable house, or even potentially empty nesters who want to live next to the families that may move into here. So we saw it as a unique selling position. It's only 61 units. The NPR code limits you to a maximum 2 units per acre for the overall project of 305 acres. So as an overall density, it's still pretty low density when you're talking about townhomes.
When you, in negotiation with this builder to purchase the lots, do you have a price range in mind? Are the townhomes going to be cheaper than the fee simple detached?
Yeah, so
product?
I was talking to Mike last night about that. He's envisioning the towns starting in the low 3s. They're going to be somewhere in that 14 to 1,800 square foot range, and the detached homes will be a range of probably in the mid 4s to mid 6s. He's creating some product we'll have to come back for that would be more 3-car garage type stuff, so he can expand the price point, but we'll have to come back in for that.
And Mr. Robinson or Ms. Lippman, either one, we designed this NPR to have a townhome product with it up to 10% when we created it.
That's correct. It's 10% of their overall property, which in this case is 30.5 acres, and limited to 2 units per acre. That's why you're seeing 61 units.
And the reason I ask about price range, just also in the business, everybody knows what I do. Affordability for houses is something that concerns me. For our students that are in the school that are coming out, we designed this product to have, or this type of zoning for townhomes. If we don't build something cheaper, everything's going to be unattainable for the students graduating from North Paulding High School. So I still focus on trying to get something out there for people to be able to buy. It's hard to do anything in the low 300s.
Are there any other questions from the Planning Commission to the applicant?
This development going to be sewered through Dallas?
Chuck, that's our district, yes. Yes.
Okay. Mr. Callahan, are you familiar, does Dallas have the capacity with all the development you got going now?
I would have to find out, but with everything that's going on, I would almost say yes, but I will have to confirm that.
Mr. Wooten, any idea from yourself dealing with Dallas?
They finished one expansion, and I think they're beginning another. So I would think they do have it. I'm not sure it's this development, but I've seen another. And was this the one that had the development agreement with Dallas? That was one of the more. Okay, well, but I'm pretty sure they do have capacity for this.
Dallas says no, I think that pretty much answers the question after the fact anyway.
And they'll be getting water from us, so we've got water.
And Mr. Wooten, on the private street section, I know you and I both know some neighborhoods that we have public water and private streets, and it's been an issue for both you and I, the water system, over the years. What's your take on the private streets?
Personally, don't really like them because the hard part is when you make a repair, then the homeowners are expecting something different because it's their street. And, what we do is we repair, to the standards we have, and we do paving, but they may say it doesn't match the rest of our street. And it generally causes a little more of an issue with the homeowners association.
And Mr. Jones, back to the street design and build, with a higher density, couldn't we increase the paving spec or design spec for that section to protect us?
Yes, you could, based on the anticipated number of lots using the trips.
So would you guys be obtainable to increasing that paving spec in that section to keep it public?
Based on,
Just based on the density and the wear and tear of those streets being only in that only occurring in the townhome section.
I'm happy to look at it. I don't know what the ratio or measurement would be. From a owner occupant, or people who live in a 5-bedroom house versus a 3-bedroom townhome, kids, soccer practice, trip counts. If you can hand me a formula, yes, the answer, but I'd just like to understand.
I think it's just the number of trips on that short section and the wear on the paving, correct?
Yeah, is there a formula for trip count?
Basically, when it comes to subdivision streets, S1, S2, S3, S2, I think what you're probably looking at what this is designed for, it's a 6-2-1. S3 is a 8-2-1 section.
Yeah, so build it 8-2-1. You're too much as a base on very short section of streets.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. Like I said, I just don't understand what the ratio would be. So if there's a mathematical formulaic way.
8-2-1 is 8 inches of GAB, 2 inches of asphalt, 1. So typically your topping is either 1.5 inches of topping.
Okay. Yes.
Any other questions to the applicant from the Planning Commission? You may take your seat.
Thank you. I think we're still unclear, I am, on number 5.
Well,
That I hear council's comment about project-specific versus system improvement, and it doesn't sound to me like we have project-specific right at the moment.
well, I would think as a placeholder, because again, this is not fiat. Once we approve it or say we're going to approve it or whatever we ended up doing, it's going to be forwarded to the Board of Commissioners
Right.
for further discussion and approval ultimately. So we can leave it as a placeholder if necessary, or if there's more clarity that we can provide right now, we can try to.
I think there's wisdom in that. I would say simply this: if it's a system improvement, it's not permissible. If it's a project improvement, it may be permissible. Projects deal with this particular subdivision. The funds can only be spent on this particular project. They can't be spread out amongst the system. And that is because Paulding County does not have impact fees.
So what I'm hearing, and I'm being very, very literal about what I'm hearing, is that if it were to be applied to a segment of Snoat Jones, which is a part of the overall project, that would theoretically be applicable in this case.
Theoretically,
But if
yes.
we are talking about anything that were to take place outside of the parameters of this project, then no.
Correct.
Does that still end up benefiting the DOT as far as enabling them to do what they need to do? Then I guess that would be to Mr. Jones.
I mean, basically from council, we're agreeable at this point in time to removing that particular stipulation.
That clears it up.
Did we come to the conclusion that we could remove the other ones that are development reg oriented? Number 6 and possibly number 9.
Number 6, 7, James.
Yeah, number 6 with adjacent properties. I'm almost positive. I know the old development regs addressed it,
Language in there regarding that. This was-
and y'all can look at that at plan review.
Yeah, I would rather you stand on regulation and those standards as opposed to a stipulation in zoning.
And then the streets to be public, if maybe y'all amenable to an increased pavement spec of 8.2 and 1, keep them public.
Then I would just amend that stipulation to state a higher
Yeah,
level
but
of
we're not-
paving.
And then number 9 would have been,
Well, I understand the reasoning behind number 9. Now,
I do
we
too.
deal with it in some of our own attached family locations where you have somebody who has a large truck that parks in the driveway and hitch and everything is
We-
out into the road.
we deal with it in every
So
neighborhood.
it happens.
And people parking in the streets.
But
I've got neighbors that park in
I would
yards.
think that should be a plan review consideration as well.
Okay.
That's what I think. It's not necessarily what y'all think, so. So, we'll continue on. We have about 5 minutes remaining for anyone wishing to speak on behalf of this application. Seeing none, is there anyone that wishes to speak in opposition to this application? Or may have questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, then I will entertain a motion on application 2024-29-Z. And then there is also the special exception 2024-02-SE.
Mr. Chairman, the special exception is actually
Part of the
administrative
overall
approval,
application.
just
Okay.
that they're meeting that extra requirement of the zoning ordinance for that type product.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, for who?
Mr. Larkin.
Mr. Larkin, would you mind?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Mr. Larkin.
Hi.
You said that you have 2 mail kiosks, and you're going to put them on the same side of the street, right?
No, we're going to put one on each side of Cartersville Highway. So
Okay.
one will probably be up in the amenity center, then one will be located on the other
Okay.
side.
This is a yes or no question. Will you have security cameras there?
I don't know. That'd be, I can make up an answer. Are there security cameras typically? I've never heard that concern.
It's dangerous not to have security cameras at a kiosk, a mail kiosk.
I know they'll be well lit, but I'm not able to comment beyond that.
I think I heard on the news about a attack in
That's right.
Fulton County just recently at a mail kiosk.
Will you be willing to make this a stipulation?
I don't have authority to do that. Is that something that you would entertain, Mr. Terwigler?
I'll offer 2 things. One, we'll put a cover over them, because that's one issue I've had in some past neighborhoods where we failed to cover the kiosks. But also, they'll be well lit. And then if the HOA decides to have a Ring subscription or something like that, I would leave that to the HOA and their board and their annual budgeting.
It really doesn't matter if it's a cover over it, because it's dangerous. So my question is,
So with cameras, I mean, is the free Google Nest subscription sufficient? I'm not sure what.
people rob these kiosks.
I'm understanding that perspective. I'm just asking, what is the condition you're asking me to agree to?
I'm just
Is it a
asking
ring? Is
you
it
to
a Ring camera?
put a camera there.
We'll agree to put some kind of Ring or some service provider camera that has a monthly subscription to it.
For the,
Is that?
There.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
all right. Is there any further comment from the Planning Commission? If not, I'll entertain a motion with regard to application 2024-29Z. Again, if you would take consideration into the stipulations that have been discussed.
I'll take a stab at it.
There you go.
I make a motion to approve with the following stipulations. Number 1, as is. Number 2, as is. Number 3, as is. Number 4, as is. Strike number 5, strike number 6. Strike number 7. Number 8 becomes number 5, and it requires mail kiosk in both sides of Highway 61 phases. Strike number 9. Number 6, leave the detach as public street with an increased paving spec of 8, 2, and 1. And number 7, provide security cameras on both kiosk locations.
All right, so I have a motion. I'm never going to get this. I have a motion for Mr. Steele to approve with unamended stipulations 1 through 4, and then with amended stipulations 5 through 7, to require mail kiosk on both sides of 61 for the development, increased pave spec for the townhome portion of the development, and to set a security camera at the kiosk sites.
Correct.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Callahan. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes 5, 1, and 1. Okay, it will be forwarded to the Board of Commissioners meeting. You'll have to help me on this every time. When's the next Board of Commissioners meeting?
November 12th
On November 12th at 2 p.m.
at 2 p.m.
Applicant must be present for it to be considered. Mr. Robinson.
Okay, next application, 2024-33Z, application by Kenneth O. McMicken, requesting to rezone 12.2 acres from R2 Suburban Residential District to B2 Highway Business District for commercial/office park. Property is located in land lot 614, District 3, Section 3. It's located along the east side of Dallas-Ackworth Highway, State Route 92. And it's north of Crossroads Drive. It's in Commission Post 1. Staff has recommended approval with 4 stipulations.
If you would, please sign in, state your name, and address your comments to the chair.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kenneth McMicken, and I own that 12.2 acres on 92, and I want to get it rezoned from R2 to B2 for commercial.
You have, as an office park, any further designs on it beyond an office park? Do you know what it would be used for?
No, sir.
Okay. You're familiar with the 4 stipulations that the county has recommended?
Yes, sir, I am, and I'm not really sure. The only one I have a problem with is the traffic impact study. The others are fine. I have no issue with 1, 2, or 3. But number 4 will mean, it says that I need to do a traffic impact study. And I think that would be, it's hard for me to do that when I'm not real sure exactly how I'm gonna build it. And with them doing the 4-lane on 92, don't see how I could do an accurate traffic study.
Well, I would think, and Mr. Jones can correct me if I'm wrong, that the traffic impact study would be a document that you would submit along with what your intended design is going to be at plan review. Is that correct?
Yes, Billy, that's correct. Essentially, maybe the stipulation be reworded to, at time of the plan to submit.
Okay. So at the time that you have determined what you're going to do and you have acquired an engineer, architect, and the rest of what you need for doing the development, you would then, prior to breaking ground, before you get a land disturbance permit, you would have to submit your plan to plan review, which is the professional staff of the county who would look at it, and you would have to have this traffic impact study available for them to review it from an engineer of record.
I have no problem with that.
Okay. So you're agreeable to all 4 steps?
Yes, sir.
Are there any questions to the applicant from the Planning Commission?
You said currently you don't have a end user in mind on any of the 3 parcels?
Well, I have a few ideas.
Okay.
I have nothing permanent. I have nothing said, I just have a few ideas.
Okay. So where did we come up with, like business park, or did I hear that right?
It was a description, yeah.
And we can put the site plan up, but it was
Yeah.
actually showing, I think it was 3 tracks.
I see the 3 tracks, but obviously we don't see any type of end user or.
We don't have an end user in this case at this time. They would be open to the B2 uses.
Is there any B2 uses that wouldn't be allowed in it, or is it would be open to any B2?
It'd be open to any B2 use. We did not remove any since it's actually on a state highway, and that's the B2 uses are recommended on corridors.
But this meets comp plan, staff recommendation
Meets
for
comp
approval?
plan. It's just north of an area of influence. It's on an employment corridor.
Okay.
And Mr. McMicken, you're familiar with the list of businesses that are allowed under B2?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, are there any other questions to the applicant from the Planning Commission? Hearing none, you may take your seat. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak on behalf of this application? Hearing none, is there anyone here that wishes to speak in opposition to this application or may have questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion with regard to application 2024-33-Z.
Make a motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve from Mr. Leggett with the 4 listed stipulations.
Yes.
And a second from Ms. Fitzgerald. All in favor?
Mr. Chairman, was that amended stipulation number 4 to reflect at the time of plan submittal?
Yeah, do we want to amend the stip to state that the traffic study is due upon submittal to plan review?
Can I ask a question real quick to Mr. Phillips? Wouldn't that be implied anyway? I mean, you wouldn't turn it in between now and then. When we put these on here, requiring it doesn't require it for it to be handed to us right this second. So it would only make sense that default, that has to be when you submit it.
There's certainly an implication, yeah, that you wouldn't, I mean, let's say you do rezone it to B2 or gets rezoned for B2, and let's say it just lies vacant for the next 35 years. Traffic study isn't much good for a vacant piece of property that there's never any development that's commenced upon it.
Well, in year 35, I turned in my plans.
Right.
I turned in a traffic study for that date.
Right.
To me, it always implies that this stuff, like when we have when we see things that say owner developer agrees to, or they're entering into an agreement, our first assumption is that we've had those conversations, both staff and developer, or that we get to, like this, that it just understood that this is something you're going to have to do before you can build it. And just logic says it would be it.
Yeah,
Basically, the only difference is he's gonna be paying more taxes on the B2 than R2 until he comes with that, with the plan and all the requirements.
The same would hold true with the construction of a left turn lane.
Yeah.
Probably don't want to construct it.
That's right.
Until you actually start developing the property. Mr. Leggett, your motion was to approve with the stipulations. I would recommend, if I'm hearing correctly, that you withdraw your motion and restated approval with the stipulations as amended.
Okay, I do withdraw that motion and resubmit it with the number 4 change to be at the time of submittance at plan review.
And Ms. Fitzgerald, are you comfortable with your second? Yeah. All in favor? Motion passes 6-0 and 1. Again, it will be forwarded to the Board of Commissioners meeting on November 12th at 2 p.m. Applicant must be present for it to be considered. And we are on our next application, Mr. Robinson.
Okay. Next application is 2024-34Z, City of Hiram. Application by Baron Castillo, requesting to rezone 1.816 acres from R2 Suburban Residential District to B2 Highway Business District within the City of Hiram to accommodate a growing car repair and sales business and lot. Property is located in land lot 543, District 2, Section 3. It's on the west side of Hiram-Mackworth Highway, which is also State Route 92. It's north of Jimmy Lee Smith Parkway. It's in Commission Post 3 as well. And the recommendation is approval with 5 stipulations. We did have one inquiry on this one, but no noted opposition.
Is the applicant present?
It's present.
Good afternoon, Joel Larkin with Sam's Larkin and Huff, and I'm pleased to represent Mr. and Mrs. Barron, sitting back here, who run Barron's Automotive, currently out on 278. They've been looking to purchase a piece of property and develop their own building, and they've identified this, funny you should say, properties that have been sitting for 35 years. As most of you know, this property is in the city of Hiram. It's located right across from Scott Anderson's truck parking and camper parking lot on 92. On that side of the street, you have essentially a bunch of vacant lots now that were one-time residences. And if you were to visit it, you'll find that they're active dumping grounds. And my clients have put this property under contract with the proposal to build a building for their car lot and to service their vehicles. The property is, as I said, in the city of Hiram. It is designated in both Paulding County and the city of Hiram for commercial development. It fronts on State Route Highway 92, which, as you know, is going to be 4-laned. It's a little bit of a challenging piece because of the shape. It narrows as you get towards the back, and there's a stream running along the south side of the property. Prior to filing the zoning application, we did seek and obtain a waiver on the stream bank buffers, and that was approved subject to some additional detention requirements that we work out with the county engineer. So this application is to rezone it B2 to build a 2-story commercial building pursuant to a site plan we've submitted. We've also requested a variance from the R40, or from the 40-foot buffer that the ordinance requires against residential development. And in this case, we have residential on the back of the property and to the north. And I've got an aerial, just to hand this down the line, gives you a little bit better idea on that. That aerial shows Mr. Anderson's commercial development across the street, but it also shows the existing state of development around this property. And the buffer currently applies to the back and to the north side of the property. When you look at this aerial, you'll see that on the north side of this property, there's an older townhome development that was done many, many years ago, and because of the stream bank buffer and other situation, there's a huge natural buffer that was left in place that's pre-existing on the back of the property. And then on the north side is a residence that's been in an estate for almost 20 years. That property, like this one, is designated on the comprehensive plans to be developed commercially, and that most likely that will be the use that's made of it. So then there would be no buffer required. We don't have any opposition to the buffer reduction. What we propose on that northern edge is that in lieu of an established 40-foot buffer, that we submit a landscape plan as part of plan review to create a nice buffer between this property and the next. We do need that. We do need to get into that buffer, as you'll see in our plan, to get a drive to go around the building to the back. But if you look at the buffer criteria, the variance that we propose won't cause any adverse impact to any other property owners, and will allow a more useful development of this property. It's in the city and the county's best interest that a commercial development take place on this property, so that, it'll not only add to the tax rolls, but we won't have this vacant piece of property sitting there that constantly has to be cleaned up. And we're happy to respond to any questions that you may have.
So in consideration of the 5 listed stipulations, you have no objection to those?
I do have the 5th stipulation, and I've discussed this with the DOT. It contemplates a traffic study or impact statement. This property is on a state highway, and the improvements have been planned by the state, including our access, and Mr. Jones and I believe have come to an agreement. What he's really interested in is some type of a statement from this property owner about anticipated trips, and we are agreeable to providing a statement where we give him the type of anticipated trips we expect from the property. But I don't believe he's going to require us to retain the services of a traffic engineer and expend those resources.
Mr. Jones?
Yes, again, I think it's been, these developments, you don't know if it's going to be 5 trips in the peak hour, or 50 trips in the peak hour, or 150. We're looking for essentially a statement on traffic. What are you generating? What is expected to come in and out? I think that's something, obviously, the planning and zoning board, and also the board of commissioners would like to know.
Is that statement from a certified traffic engineer, or what are we?
In this case, obviously, I think, looking at the size of the development, the type, I'm fine with something from the owner, developer, basically saying what they're going to do, how many trips they're expecting to come in and out of this place during an hour, during the day, peak hour.
All right. So that would be an amended step number 5. I want to make sure that I don't compromise anything that you're needing.
Probably change it a little bit during the plan review process. The day and peak hour trips will be provided as part of the plan review process.
And we're agreeable to that.
All right. So are there any questions to the applicant from the Planning Commission? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here that wishes to speak on behalf of this application? Hearing none, is there anyone here that wishes to speak in opposition to this application or may have questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, I will now entertain a motion with regard to application 2024-34-Z in the city of Hiram. Again, consideration be given. There are 5 listed stipulations, with the 5th one requested to be amended and is amenable by Paulding DOT Director to state that at plan review time, day and peak hour trips would need to be provided for purposes of development.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
also, they were requesting a variance of the north and west buffers of 40 feet to 10.
And then a consideration for a 6th stipulation that would allow a reduction of the 40-foot buffer to what level are we talking about?
10 foot.
By 10 feet on the north and west boundary of the property.
But that was also with a planted landscape buffer going back in its place.
You encapsulate all of that. Anybody willing to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve with the 6 stipulations.
As discussed?
As discussed.
All right. So a motion to approve from Mr. Steele with the 6 stipulations as discussed, 5 being amended to the day peak hour requirement for plan review submittal, trip count, and then 6 to be the amendment of the 40-foot buffer on the north and west portion of the boundary of the property, reduction from 40 feet by 10 feet. So to a total of 30, correct?
No, 2 10 feet.
2 10 feet. Okay, did you understand that?
Yes, with a landscape plan
With a
required.
landscape plan requirement. All right.
Mr. Chair, can you restate that?
Absolutely not.
We are accurate for the vote statement.
Okay. Are we good on 1 through 5? So 4 listed stipulations as written, the 5th to be amended to be trips per day per hour for trip count with plan review submittal. And then the 6th is, my God, reduction of the 40-foot buffer to 10 feet on the north and western boundary of the property with a landscape plan to be submitted prior to plan review.
Mr. Steele, is that your motion?
That is my motion.
Is that the second?
That's my second.
That was from Leggett. All in favor? Motion passes 6-0 and 1. And I'm not going to repeat that anymore, so.
Mr. Chairman, I had to say one announcement for the next date of the Planning Commission. Will be November the 19th, which is a Tuesday before the Thanksgiving week. It's a week early.
So no holiday for us, right?
No, we're going to have,
Well, thank you very much for your time and attendance. I would ask Planning Commission if I could have a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
From Mr. Wicks, second.
Second.
Second from Mr. Aston. All in favor? Motion passes 6-0 and 1. Have a wonderful day.